Welcome everyone to Zone 2 Talk. The question I had in my mind um, last week, I wanted to reflect on that question and see what your responses are to it. The question was, can introverts be podcasters? At first, that sounds like a contradiction because you expect podcasters to be people who are like talking extremely vocal, and introverts are supposed to be in the corner amongst themselves. So, can introverts be podcasters? At first, yeah, that was the question I had in my mind. But through this episode, I want to explore that topic. So, before I want to explain uh, on this question, I myself wanted to understand what's the difference between being an introvert and being shy. Are they the same things, or is there a difference there? And while I did some reading, what I figured out was shy basically means you are nervous, maybe awkward in social situations. Your hands are sweating, you are in the corner, you don't like people around you. And that is what I could relate to while reading uh, the definition of shy. And introvert means that you like to be alone. You get recharged when you are alone, when you are thinking or having deep thoughts about a topic and you want to express that. Um, you like a small group of people that are also in a similar thought process or wavelength as you are, and you would like to conversate with them. That is what I understood about the meaning of introvert. And then the question popped up is, can you be a confident introvert? Or is there something like shy extrovert? I'm trying to mix and match those two things. Um, but that might be something that I can reflect on some other podcast. It can quite get complex with all philosophical thinking on these questions. Um, and while I was reading, I found out what are some of the questions that you can ask yourself and determine if you are an introvert. There's a long list of questions. The top three that I liked was, are you energized spending time alone in a quiet environment? If the answer is yes, you're most likely falling in that bucket of introvert. Do you like inner world focus, thinking, processing information before speaking? Or do you just have to blabber everything out? If it's the latter, or if it's the first one, then you are more likely to be an introvert. Do you like being in the smaller social groups, the one wherein you have a similar wavelength with the people that you engage with? Then most likely you are in that introvert bucket. Um, what here it gets interesting. What happens if you are an extrovert, but you move to a country where you don't speak the language, or you don't understand the native language of that country? Do you still stay extrovert, or does the circumstances forces you to be an introvert? And this is based on my personal experience, but we will dive deeper into that conversation. Um, and when I was thinking of this question, what I realized is there might be that it might be that your core identity will not change overnight when you move to this place. But language is definitely a big part of how we express ourselves, how we connect, how we interact with each other, or even show humor to form a community or form a group. And if you can't express that, you might feel less like yourself. There might be an identity crisis. Um, and there is a research, like I did some research to back this up. Um, there is a bilingual Mexican American study that showed that when Mexican Americans, when they answered the personality test in Spanish, they emphasized family and community. But when they answered the test in English, they highlighted independence and achievements. Uh, there, it was just the same people, same brains, but they just had a different identities in answering the same similar question on a different language. So language does play a huge part in defining who you are or developing your identity, is what I understood. If you disagree or have a strong opinion, please do leave a comment. Um, and in my personal journey, I have felt this too. Felt this too. Uh, I speak Konkani, that's my mother tongue, and I speak regional language when I am talking to my friends in India. It's very rare that I speak English to them because my brain doesn't let me do that. It instantly switches to the regional language. And I feel there would be a bit of uncomfortable scenario if I start speaking to them in English. And I've also observed the similar aspect in when I am invited to Danish parties. So Danes like to speak in Danish, that's obvious. But when I am invited to a party wherein a table is full of people that know each other, and I'm the one who is not familiarized with that language, people tend to, I mean, if they are kind enough, they would switch the language to English, but that would be very difficult considering that they themselves speak Danish amongst each other. So there would be a lot of change in the context and the topics that would be discussed in those parties just because of the change in language. And I remember this vividly when I first moved from my hometown to a place in India called Kolkata. Um, at first, I spoke English to all my colleagues, and instantly you could see it on their face that something was not right. They used to treat me like an outsider, and also it was a bit intense in how they responded. They were not giving me the right information, and I was not a part of the huddle. And over a year's time, I switched to Hindi, which is quite acceptable as a language in West Bengal. And I also started using Bengali words. And all of a sudden, I could see that that shift gave me better opportunities. And I was in the huddle, you can say, where the important information was shared. And it also gave me the confidence to express myself better, in turn giving me better opportunities. So it kind of influenced my identity in some way. So bringing back to the question of can introverts be podcasters? In my opinion, they are the perfect fit for it. A podcast is actually a one-to-one, or maybe a person on the other side is virtually present, or it's just a physical one-to-one conversation. There is no crowd, so you're not nervous or you're not overstimulated, and you can have deep, meaningful conversation with this individual or with yourself, like how I am doing right now. And sometimes I even wonder, are most great podcasts or podcasters introvert? Because podcast is less about shouting with loud energy and more about being present and having that connection and deep, meaningful thoughts. So maybe the real question should be, can introverts be podcasters? But the question should be, are introverts secretly built for podcasting? It would be interesting to know your thoughts and comments. Please do use the Spotify comment section if you have any strong feeling about it. Also, another point I wanted to emphasize here is that for all the listeners that have followed this journey of few episodes, thanks for supporting. And soon we would have a book writer joining me for a video podcast session. I don't want to spell out the writer's name. I'll give you some task. You can find it out yourself, or not task, but hints. You can find it out yourself. I myself, I'm super excited. The session is planned to be rolled out somewhere in week 37 or beginning of week 38. Not very sure, but on week 37 or week 38. And the book that I would be reading to prepare for this podcast would be called The Divine Embrace. So stay tuned. And as always, thank you in Danish, tak, and Jai Hind.